Good evening. We will call to order this public hearing number 1 for ordinance O-22-02 wireless communication facilities to order. I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, this is a public hearing for ordinance O-22-02 wireless communication facilities. Thank you. Mr. Manager, are we having any kind of introduction to it?
Yeah, I'm going to kick it to Lindsay here.
Okay.
She'll give us a quick overview.
Thanks. So tonight's public hearing, the main topic is the wireless communications facilities ordinance, those specifically in the township's right-of-way. Act 50 regulates small wireless communication facilities in the rights-of-way, and we've made some changes to our ordinance which include visuals to better illustrate what these facilities should look like and where they should go. Safety, the standards of care and regulations to change with the changing standards of care, and also historic properties. Although these facilities are permitted in every zoning district by right, the design guidelines, which will be adopted as part of this, will allow the township to further regulate the aesthetics of these facilities and where they can be placed within the township's right-of-way. And although ultimately the PUC and FCC regulate wireless communications facilities, this ordinance really allows the township the opportunity to regulate where we can and ensure the health, safety, and welfare of our community. So that's just a brief introduction and overview. I have everything else in the memo if anyone has any further questions.
Okay. Again, this is a public hearing seeking public comment on this proposed ordinance. We will not be answering at this as part of the public hearing. We will be receiving the comments, and this will be coming up in our agenda as OB1, at which time we will discuss the ordinance in more detail. So we had 7 folks sign in for comment on the public hearing. Those online, we won't forget you. We'll pick you up after our 7 folks get the comment that signed in the room. First up is Mr. Gene Bazan.
Mr. Frank, I defer my comments until later since you have heard me on many occasions.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear that there are 6 others who wish to say something about this ordinance.
Very good, sir. Next, we have Steve Shannon.
He just signed it by mistake.
Excellent. Okay, so not to speak to this ordinance. Excellent. Okay. Mr. Williams?
No, not tonight.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was surprised by that one. Alicia Hughes, are you here to speak on the wireless communication facility ordinance?
No, I'm good. I want to just listen.
Okay, very good. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with the handwriting. Mary?
Yep, I signed it by accident, so did the next person.
Oh, okay, very good. All right. And finally, on this list, Joe and Gail Fowler. Fayo. Are you to speak to the ordinance, the proposed ordinance?
Sure, I speak.
Oh, thank you.
And I'd be the first one to speak. Mr. Brumball, Township Council, citizens of Lamont and College Township. So, when we got this in the mail, I started to read it, and then I hear the preliminary on it. And I think we have to go a little bit beyond looking at the aesthetics of the placement of towers. So, as I was a steward for clean water for over 21 years for the College Township Water Authority, I feel now like I have to be a steward for clean air. So I would like to ask the township to look a little deeper and consider looking beyond just the aesthetic placement of towers. And look at the science. I'm not a man of many words, but thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. At this point, we'll open it up to anyone online that wishes to speak to the proposed ordinance. Hearing nor seeing none. Mr. Pizan, you were number 2.
I mean, no disrespect to the council. They have heard my comments on numerous occasions. So I'll speak to my fellow residents. My name is Gene Bazan. With me is my wife, Tanya Slowicki. We lived on Mary Street in Lamont since 1989. Before that, I lived for 3 years in the Thompson Mansion, across from the Art Alliance. My trainings are in engineering, economics, and city and regional planning. Tanya is a materials scientist at Penn State University and works in a microwave laboratory. In 2017, anticipating West Penn Power's installation of electric smart meters, we entered a formal complaint with the Public Utilities Commission. We opposed these installations. Smart meters emit RF-EMR, radio frequency electromagnetic microwave radiation, in 2 frequency bands, radiating occupants, pets, birds, and insects throughout the day and night, inside your house and outside in your yard. The pathological features of smart meters and all other wireless information conveying devices, your smartphone, computers, routers, Fitbit watches, Bluetooth hearing aids, baby monitors, Alexa devices, smart appliances, even your vehicles. And more importantly, the cell towers and small cells that receive and transmit these signals, is that these emit packets of sharply spiked signals. These are like sharp pinpricks to the skin and to your body. Over time, the damage to your body and organs accumulates. It took 2 years before Tanya connected the new router in her lab office ceiling to her permanent partial hearing loss, preceded by increasingly excruciating pain in her jaw and head. Without the knowledge gained from our legal battle with the PUC and our utility against smart meters, she might have accepted the doctor's diagnosis that she suffered from sudden sensorineural hearing loss,
Recording in progress.
an idiopathic disease or ailment with no treatment beyond steroids and no recovery. When she had the router removed from her office ceiling, her symptoms of pain subsided. Her hearing loss remained, and now she is EMS, electromagnetic sensitive. By the way, Tanya's hearing loss occurred at microwave radiation levels 1/10,000 of the FCC's safety guidelines. The legal battle against the electric utilities and PUC continues. We include the PUC in our battle because part of the PUC's budget is covered by the very utilities it's supposed to regulate. The lead case, Povach et al. Versus PICO, has made it all the way to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It was heard on December 7th of last year, and they have not yet rendered their decision. Most of the thousands of Pennsylvanians who didn't want smart meters were cowed into submission by the utilities under threats of legal action and having their power cut off. Of these thousands, 230 entered formal complaints since 2010, and 75 still remain fighting. We now move on to cell towers, and the latest version of these, small cell towers. In 2016, Cellco Verizon applied for a permit to build a cell tower on Cortlandt Drive. Residents were opposed, and the Township Council fought against the installation for 2 years. In the end, the Zoning Hearing Board held the permit was valid, but Cellco never picked it up. The permit lapsed after a year. Fast forward to June of 2021, when Governor Wolf signed Act 50, expediting the installation of small cell towers in the public rights of way, even in residential areas. This triggered across the state a rush by municipalities to bring their cell tower ordinances into conformance with a mandate that allows these small cell towers to be placed every few hundred feet in front of our homes and residences. These will also be beaming RF-EMR, the same spiked information carrying signals emanated by smart meters, but at much higher frequencies, which means smaller wavelengths that can penetrate the walls of our houses, all in the name of providing support for the Internet of Things. These wavelengths are hazardous. Furthermore, these are not necessary. When I entered our address into the FCC's own website for broadband services, I found 8 providers, 7 of which are wireless. The fastest provider, at speeds 10 times the next, is a wired provider, Comcast. Tanya and I get wired services from Comcast for our phone and our internet. Our computers are hardwired by cable to the Comcast modem. Wired services carry more information, are faster, more reliable, safer, less energy intensive, don't bother the birds, bees, or us, and is less hackable. In a very significant legal case, Environmental Health Trust versus the FCC of August 13, 2021, the Washington, D.C. Federal District Appeals Court ordered the FCC to look at the 21 volumes of evidence of harms caused by RF-EMR and to reconsider its outdated emissions safety guidelines. These 21 volumes contain thousands of studies going back to the 1930s. In its haste to bring its wireless facilities ordinance in conformance with Act 50, our council hired the Cohen Law Group of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which gave advice to the PA Assembly on drafting Act 50. Act 50 strips local municipalities of much control over the placement and operation of these small cell towers. Act 50 even allows placement of these small cell towers in our utility easements. That is, that strip of land beneath the wire that goes from your pole to your house. You could end up having a small cell tower in your front yard as part of Act 50's language. Act 50 was rushed through both houses of the Assembly in 9 days. While in committees, the chairs disallowed testimony from residents and expert witnesses in violation of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law. Only advocates for wireless cell towers were allowed to speak. The township's draft wireless facilities ordinance, the subject of this public hearing, does not go far enough to protect residents to the maximum extent allowed by the law. An attorney who works with municipalities throughout the country on their wireless ordinances has recommended 11 measures which he regards as must-haves. I have summarized these on the handout you may have picked up on the way into this meeting tonight. Our proposed ordinance has none of these in its present draft. The township has failed to uphold its primary legal duty, as stated in Chapter 1 of our Township Code, quote, the promotion of the public health, safety, comfort, convenience, and general welfare. Beyond these must-haves, there is a better solution that puts wireless cell towers in the shadows. Wired connectivity via shielded cables, as with Comcast or fiber optic cable. Both are faster, safer, less energy intensive, less intrusive, less hackable, and less subject to the vicissitudes of weather and obstructions such as trees and buildings. I urge the council, as I urge you, my fellow residents, to insist on adding these must-haves to our present draft ordinance. If that requires a different attorney, I know an attorney who can do this. Parenthetically, if we insisted on wired connectivity in our ordinances, we wouldn't need this ordinance nor the associated design manual. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you for your input throughout the whole process. As you're well aware, council has reviewed this much more than 9 days.
Yes.
Anyone else on ordinance O-2202 wireless communication facilities? Hearing nor seeing none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We adjourn. We now call to order PH2, Resolution R-22-11, Climate Change.
All right.
Mr. Manager, we have
I
an
will-
introduction.
Yeah, give a quick introduction here. As council will recall, at the May 19th meeting, council received a special presentation from Ms. Sylvia Neely, the group leader of State College chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby. During that meeting, Ms. Neely was requesting a resolution either endorsing the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act or otherwise providing support for a national carbon fee. Based upon the direction provided by council, staff prepared the staff prepared the draft resolution, R-22-11, calling on the United States Congress to enact legislation that proactively addresses climate change through the reduction of carbon emissions. Council at that meeting expressed an intent of addressing this draft resolution essentially in two means. To address the overall educational and public awareness process on the impacts of climate change, and also lending College Township's voice in support of legislation combating climate change through the reduction of carbon emissions. We reviewed that draft resolution initially at the June 16th meeting. Council at that time did not have any direct comments, any significant changes to the resolution as presented, and authorized staff to set a public hearing, which is why we're here tonight. So with that, Mr. Frank, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So there's nothing that required a public hearing for this? Am I correct with that, Mr. Manager?
That's correct.
However, council felt that anytime we're reaching out of our local zone, we should afford our residents an opportunity to offer comment. We did not have anyone sign up to present comments on this proposed resolution, but does anybody wish to speak to it that's in attendance? We'll start there. Seeing none. Anyone online wish to speak to this proposed resolution?
No hands raised, sir.
Seeing nor hearing none. Again, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. Call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now call to order this July 21st, 2022 regular meeting of the College Township Council to order. First item is to open the floor to anyone wishing to speak to council on something not on this evening's agenda. Yes, please.
Hi. I'm going to turn this because I want to plead with the council, and you guys probably don't care. We're Malcolm and Mary Beth Morrison. We bought a house in Lamont here a couple months ago, back in the spring. And our goal was to, as part of our budget in doing that, our plan was to, when we're gone in the fall, we wanted to rent the house out for the football weekends. A lot of people do that. That was kind of part of our budget planning. But not knowing all the ins and outs, it appears that our application is going to be turned down for that. And so I wanted to let you guys know a little bit about who we are, because I think it's important. We've been Center County residents since 1979. We raised our kids here. We both have Penn State degrees. My wife retired from Penn State. I retired from Raytheon. She's still a member of the church here in town. We were both members of the church in Howard when we lived there. Our kids are still here. Our grandson is here and goes to the State College School. And we've been involved with scouts and sports. We've both coached soccer and Little League. And, we've done the type of things I think you'd want someone to do. When we retired, we spent one winter here, and I said I can't do that. And so we moved to Florida. We bought a place down there to Snowbird. And what we did, I'm an Air Force veteran, I used my VA benefits to buy the house down there, which required that that be our primary resident. At the time, we lived in Stormstown. We had a big house, a big yard there, and it was no big deal. I never thought about it. And so we did that. Well, maintaining the big house and big yard there got to be too much, so 2 years ago we sold that and tried to full-time in Florida and with kids and grandkids and Florida heat, that wasn't gonna work. So this year we moved back to Center County again, but it is not technically our primary residence. We spend roughly half the year here and half the year there. It hasn't been I can't give you the number of days, it changes every season depending on what the kids are doing, what pandemic we're facing, and, I can't tell you what it's gonna be next year. But we bought a house in Lamont that was a rental for a number of years. As such, it was kind of let go and run down, which is why we could afford it. And since then, we've been very busy at making it our home. But the way the ordinance reads for short-term rentals, it has to be listed as your primary home. And I don't see a way for us to do that. So I'm asking the council if there's any way to reconsider the wording on that or the status of the application so that we can still be Center County residents. This is our home here. We had to struggle quite a bit to decide whether we wanted people in it, even for a couple days at a time. We decided, well, football games won't be too bad. People show up. Most of the time they're going to be out shopping, out eating, or at the game. And so longer-term rental stuff didn't really fit us, again, because it limits when we can come and go in our own home. So that's kind of our situation right here. Did you have anything to add?
Pretty well covered. At that point, I'm still on the board of the Houserville Church. I'm still one of the lay leaders there, and I'm on another board locally for a nonprofit that was established, and so I still have ongoing obligations here. I've been out 3 weeks this year without him because of things that were going on. So this year I'll have been here close to 160 days. That's pretty darn close to half a year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the staff for all the help in getting to this point, and particularly Mark for all the other stuff you did to get to this point. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Does staff want to offer any comment on?
Well, yeah, very quickly. I know that Mark has been involved. When the application came in, it was reviewed. We discussed it at a staff level, and we felt that there were some gray areas we needed some additional guidance on. We did solicit input from the township attorney, from the township solicitor. And basically, our decision, it really came down to the definition of residency, or how to determine residency. And Louis Glantz, the township solicitor, had provided us with some guidelines in terms of what really constituted residency, or what would constitute residency. And as has been mentioned here, those particular elements, those particular tests didn't apply in this particular case. As a result, it appears that if it's not already been so, that the request for the permit will be denied, because it's not a resident.
Primary residence.
Pardon me? A primary residence, yes, thank you. So that's a little bit of the background. Mark, I know that you were involved. I don't know if you have anything very specific to add, or Lindsay, in terms of the writing of the ordinance. We have gone back through. We've confirmed there is no language in the existing short-term rental ordinance for any type of an exception that is written into the actual ordinance. And I think that Mark had advised that one of the other options that might be available would be to go to the zoning hearing board because of the determination of a denial. That would seem to be a very heavy lift in terms of the burden of proof in order to secure any kind of a favorable interpretation from the zoning hearing board beyond that which has already been made by staff. And so I think the other options that were presented were to have the conversation with council, either in person in a meeting like this or via letter, to basically explain the situation and to see if council had any guidance for staff. At this point, any kind of modifications or changes would basically require ordinance revision. But there would be, it's entirely in council's purview as to whether or not there should even be a consideration as to any modifications to the ordinance. So the ordinance, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of staff and the opinion of the township solicitor, is being applied as appropriate and as written at this point in time, and that's what has led us to this point and to the presentation this evening.
So, two questions. They're not prevented from renting it if they went the rental housing permit route. Is that
Correct. Correct. They could
Okay.
rent on a long-term basis.
As long as it's over 14 days at a time.
Yes,
15.
yes.
15 or more days at a time.
Okay.
I advise them to, multiple options to proceed from this point. And one piece of advice was to either write a letter to council or appear before council to determine if this is part of what the intention was of the ordinance. This was, I think, I don't know that we've really anticipated these 50-50 splits. And it's, this provision was put in to prevent investors from buying up all the houses and turning them into every neighborhood into nothing but a strip of hotels. So the Morrisons, I guess, we're here tonight to see if council has interest in pursuing something, change to the language of the ordinance to permit something under this circumstance
Right.
for a short term.
In typical fashion, our ordinances are living documents, and they're perfect until they meet contact.
Sure.
And so here we are. If I heard staff correctly, they identified a couple potential gray areas.
Well, I think there is. I think in part, it's important, and we do have an intent section of the ordinance.
Yes.
And I would encourage at certain, first off, I'm suggesting this come back on as a future agenda item.
Sure.
For further discussion with council. And in so doing, I think that what we want to do is, as a group, we want to collectively take a look at the intent of the ordinance originally and determine whether or not these kinds of situations were contemplated.
Right.
Or if they do kind of fall into this gray area. Because clearly, the one thing that I specifically remember in the conversation about short-term rentals was the issue of the investor-owned properties. And that was something that I think there was unanimity around council in terms of limiting the ability of investor-owned properties to be able to acquire short-term rental permits. We did talk about homeowner occupancy in terms of people being in the home at the time of the rental. This kind of is that catch-22 situation that we have. I don't recall that we specifically discussed the issue of kind of a split residency situation or a snowbird type of a situation. So, and if we did, I don't specifically recall, but there were certain elements that we were very keen on addressing in the last round of short-term rental ordinance changes.
Right.
So
let's see if council has, would they like to see it come back with a further
Yeah,
review?
absolutely.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
to that point, I mean, this is the letter and the spirit of, that seems to be the dissonance here. So I think we need to revisit it. I would like to.
Yeah, I mean, this ordinance was a bit of a passion of mine, so I would still, before any discussion, the first discussion would be a minimum number of days that they could prove that they were here. I mean, it gets complicated once you're like, prove to us you slept in the house, this minimum, what, da 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 da. But yeah, absolutely, I'm willing to talk about it.
Okay, so we'll bring it back for a future, now that it's met some contact and see where we can shore it up and just confirm the spirit and intent match.
Yeah.
And if I might ask, just, something from our solicitor, just outlining his comments on it as well, and what would satisfy.
On this specific?
On this specific, yeah, relative to this specific ordinance as it is written, and then what might we, if there were any modifications that we agreed to, how might that?
Well, the other thing about that is I think we need to confirm the intent and everything before.
John, okay, yeah, that's fair.
So, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, you'll be seeing this again, stay tuned.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Anyone else have any other items to discuss with council that are not on this evening's agenda? Seeing or hearing none, do any members of council have any potential new agenda items for this evening? Hearing or seeing none. Plans, P1, Steve Shannon Automotive Subdivision, 183 Shiloh Road, State College. Lindsay.
Great. Thanks. We put together a PowerPoint this evening for council, just to sort of stick with our new process to give everyone a better overview of the plan before we really get into the review. The owner of this property, this is the subdivision of tax parcel 192B89, also known as the former Sears Service Center located near the Nittany Mall. So the applicant's name is HJSS Enterprises. The owner name is Nittany Center Realty. The address is 183 Shiloh Road. And if you're not familiar with this site, it is located right here, and the Nittany Mall is there. The applicant wishes to subdivide the 1.28 property of the former Sears Center off from the rest of the mall property. The existing use is the vacant vehicle service center, and the proposed use is the vehicle center. Next slide, please. So just a brief history of Sears Auto. In 1997, the land development plan was approved. 1998, the permits for construction were approved. Sears Auto was in business then until December of 2019, I'm sorry. So in May, staff started talking with Mr. Steve Shannon, and now his proposal for his Steve Shannon Tire and Auto is in front of council. An easement and covenants restriction agreement. This is an important element to note about the plan. There is an ECR in place which binds all the owners to the terms of the ECR that have a part of the mall. In the case of this plan, there will be two signatures. The first one is the owner signature. The owner signature block signifies the owner as acknowledging that the subdivision is happening, and then the developer signature is them acknowledging that they are bound to the agreement of the ECR. Okay. Sidewalks are going to be a topic of discussion with this, so we wanted to give you this view of all of the red lines around the mall, which are the existing sidewalks. And you can see sort of the parts that are back here, that Rural King, the ultimate goal then is to, be able to walk around the whole mall. And so some of these now are newer connections. So if you haven't been out there, take a little walk around the mall. It's pretty nice with the new sidewalks. So the next slide, since we are in the midst of the pedestrian facilities master plan, although it's not adopted, we still went through the process and scored this project. It scored a 17, which really means that the hardship, it would be harder to prove a hardship when trying to get relief from putting in pedestrian facilities in this case. And also when we get into the fee in lieu, which we won't get into this evening, but the construction costs will increase 10% when you when your score is up to 17. Once it gets to 18, it's a 15% increase in the fee in lieu. So the next slide, please. Initially, there was a 1,100 linear feet of sidewalk proposed along Shiloh Road. Although months back, you saw this proposal with the Rural King subdivision when that was under review. That connection was sought after at that point, but when it was proposed with this plan, we went out and did a lot of walking around and just determining that the safety concerns really outweigh having a sidewalk right there in that location. And Don will speak a little bit later about this. So the Planning Commission did see this, and as a result of their discussions, staff went out and met with PennDOT, Pentair, and other members of staff. And the outcome there is listed, the key points. We discussed a pedestrian study and the pedestrian crossings and the upgrades that would be required at those intersections. But we will get into those details here shortly. So the current proposal is, and this was part of the discussion with the Planning Commission as well, is to extend where the sidewalk ends at Rural King west to the Decibel Road interchange, the Decibel Road entrance to the mall. Next slide, please. And here are just some street views of that. The sidewalk will then extend north toward the mall. And what's not shown on the picture is a proposed 60 linear foot piece of sidewalk that's also going to be from Mr. Shannon's store to the existing sidewalk, the new existing sidewalk that exists there at the Shiloh Drive entrance. So now getting into the plan, the next slide. It was a pretty, next slide. Here is the plan. The subdivision plan was pretty straightforward, so staff didn't have a lot of comments outside of some of the sidewalk conditions. But some of the outstanding, or some of the comments that have been satisfied are on the next slide. Well, this is just an enlargement, I'm sorry. The next slide. So we asked about lighting. There's no proposed lighting. We did go out and do a field visit because we were discussing the guide rails and how they can be moved when the first proposal for sidewalks was being discussed, but now that is off the table. They provided an enlargement for us. They had some other water line discussions with our stormwater engineer. There were some inaccuracies that they were able to fix. They're very minor, and some of the stormwater notes then added to the plan. And then we also have some further pending comments, but at this time I'm going to turn it over to Don because he's going to discuss a little bit more about sidewalks. So next slide.
Thank you, and you can go on to the next slide then, Mike. Basically, what I want to talk about is the recommendation by Planning Commission and how that may be changed. Planning Commission had recommended, as Lindsay showed, a connection from the end of the existing sidewalk over by Rural King over to the intersection at the entrance, and then an ADA ramp to be put in at that entrance. Mark Toretti had presented some concerns with that when that recommendation was made, mainly that once you start doing some improvements at an intersection, they snowball, and then all of a sudden there's all kinds of improvements at other points on the intersection, perhaps. So we did have a meeting with PennDOT after the Planning Commission recommendation. There were 3 representatives from the traffic unit and the construction unit there, representatives from Pentair, and 3 of our own members there. And what I want to talk about is sort of what's at that intersection. Why would there be a potential for not just sticking an ADA ramp in, but are we starting to look at PED signals, PED heads, push buttons, things like that? But I'm sorry, go back, please. If you look at that intersection, there at Decibel Road, there's a crossing at Decibel Road, there's a crossing at College Avenue, and then there's a crossing across the entrance. Now, there isn't one on the 4th corner there, on the western side. There is no crossing there, but if you look up at the upper part of the drawing, there's 2 sidewalks that go up along the entrance, 2 existing sidewalks. I think they're only about 4.5 feet wide, but there's also a crossing up at the top, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But next slide, Mike. This is a look at the northeast corner. This would be the corner that we were saying that Shannon would be putting a ADA ramp in. And there's several issues at this particular corner. You have an inlet in the road. You have an inlet behind that inlet, which serves more just as a junction box. It doesn't get any water in it other than what falls right through the grate. But then you also have a pole. And if you notice right there is the PED button on the pole. There's no landing there. There's just the base for the pole itself. And then behind it there is a cabinet which has all of the traffic signal hardware in it. And right there you have something that you don't see very often anymore. That is a 3-head pedestrian signal. That's not for cars. That's not a vehicular one. It's about half as big. That is actually a pedestrian head. And that can sometimes be confusing because you have the green light there on the pedestrian head, and it's possible if you're looking up at the main signal, it's red. So, next slide. Now this is the northwest corner. Now this corner is the corner that when the casino plan was developed, it is agreed that a sidewalk will come in along there and go into that that corner of the intersection. And you can see there's an inlet there in the way. You have the signal pole and some other items that are cluttering up that intersection. Now, one of the things that the PennDOT traffic signal people talked about when we were standing out there looking at this is that crossing is so far out away, almost into College Avenue, that if you're standing on that corner and you're looking to cross that entrance, people coming down the entrance, say coming from McDonald's and coming down, they can't see you. You're blocked. So PennDOT is now saying that crossing should be moved to the right in this drawing, or in this slide. So that was one of the things that came up, is that this existing crossing, there's some issues. Now, if you go back too far, then people turning in right off of College Avenue, then on the northeast corner, they may not see you. So there's some issues here. Next slide, please. This is a look at the southeast corner. And once again, you can see there is a PED button right on the pole. There's no landing there of any kind. There's a raised foundation for the pole, so it doesn't meet any kind of ADA requirements. Next slide, please. And this is just sort of an aerial, which Lindsay actually already had one like it. Those green lines would be the sidewalks going into the intersection. The one on the left, proposed sidewalk per the casino plan, and the one on the right would be what we're requesting for the Shannon plan. And once again, there's the existing crosswalk shown there. Now this next one is a little bit cluttered. Once you get into, as I mentioned earlier, doing one corner, PennDOT's going to look at maybe we have to do all the corners. And those 4 circles represent pedestrian signal heads and push button upgrades. We'd be getting rid of the 3-head signal, pedestrian signal, and putting the flashing walking figure and with a countdown. Now I'm showing one at the southwest too. If you look further down from that drawing, you can see a sidewalk coming into Decibel Road. There's one on the western side, comes down, and then it does a 90 to tie into the edge of the road. So right now, if you're taking that sidewalk, you walk down, you then have to cross Decibel Road, walk over to the southeast signal, or pedestrian button, push it to get across College Avenue. So you're crossing 2 streets. It is possible that may need to be moved. And I should point out, and I forgot to say this earlier, one of the things PennDOT came up with when we were out there, they said this needs to have a pedestrian study done. As part of any signal or pedestrian access improvements, they want to see a pedestrian study done. Now that study is actually being done for the casino plan, is that correct, Mark?
Yes.
So at that meeting, Mark promised to have Wooster and Associates review this as far as what pedestrian demands are there, because PennDOT, quite frankly, looked at this and said, well, we don't even know if you want sidewalks there at all. The pedestrian study will say if you need that. Now, our ordinance is saying we need sidewalks, and I think common sense says there's going to be a need for sidewalks there. But at any rate, what could come out of this study is PennDOT would say, well, it doesn't make sense to force people across Decibel Road, so let's move that crossing to the western side. Or they might say you need both. So there's some things up in the air on this, and what I'm showing there is that relocated sidewalk. As I mentioned before, you can see the two white lines basically right on the edge of College Avenue, moving them up to some point to get you back so that you have good sight distance coming down the access road. Next slide. Okay. This gets back to what I'm going to talk a little bit about is what the Planning Commission recommended. As Lindsay noted, the original proposal from the developer was we would put a sidewalk along Shiloh Road. The trouble with that sidewalk is the existing guide rail is 4 feet 3 inches from the back face of the curb. So even if we put a sidewalk in, it would be a substandard width, and then you would have people walking down, basically pinned up against a guide rail. So if you have people crossing each other on this sidewalk, you know, a 5-foot sidewalk where you're in a yard area, somebody steps off onto the yard. But if you were doing that up along Shiloh Road, somebody's either going to step in the road or somebody's going to have to step over the guide rail. So I really did not recommend approving the idea of a sidewalk in that area. And Planning Commission looked at it and said, well, we already put a section of sidewalk in, it doesn't show up very well on this slide, but on the left-hand or right-hand side, that is what was put in as part of the Royal King project. So what the developer now has agreed to is to run that sidewalk down to the intersection at the entrance into the mall across from Decibel Road. Now, one thing that has been brought to my attention since I was making my recommendations, my recommendation as in my document here is that the sidewalk get put in per Planning Commission's recommendation. An ADA curb ramp at the northeast corner be put in, including, PED button, the countdown signal at the northeast corner only. But now, Mark presented me with something today. They are working on the HOP for the casino. And the casino had presented plans showing the northwest corner doing work there. And PennDOT said to them, oh, if you have to do that, if you're doing that, then you got to do the northeast corner as well. So it is possible that this northeast corner crossing would actually be done as part of the casino project. Just to put that out there. Now, so my recommendation may be tempered with, if it's already put in, his client doesn't have to put it in. If we would go into my recommendation letter, I make the comment that, thank you, basically approve the sidewalk waiver request as prepared by Pentair with the following conditions. One is construct a sidewalk along College Avenue as approved, as recommended, I should say, by the Planning Commission. And the second one was construct an ADA curb ramp with pedestrian push button and countdown pedestrian signal to tie into the pedestrian crossing, which may now actually be part of the casino project. And the other ones are construct a sidewalk along Shiloh Road that ties their development into the sidewalk that was put in as part of Aldi. So that makes the connection up there. But then I've added this, any modifications to the above as may be required by PennDOT upon review of the pedestrian study and is agreed to by the township engineer. So I'm sort of leaving it a little bit open. That corner there, that northeast corner, how that happens, may not be as noted in my memo. So if the casino has to put that northeast corner in, they need to tie into it with their sidewalk. Would be the modification there. So
So
you
the
would,
casino's requirements preempt these people's, like, that
well,
comes
since
first.
they're ahead of the game. They've already submitted the HOP and they've gone through one round
That's
of
the way
comments.
it is, then that's, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that makes a lot of sense. I wish I'd have worded it a little bit differently, because I think that's the way it should be. Any questions?
No?
You went over it.
Good.
Crystal. Anything else from staff, presentation-wise?
Wasn't that enough?
It was, but I thought I'd ask anyway. Questions for staff on anything that's been presented so far? Actually, Mr. Ferretti, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit more to that. Like I said, I'm Mark Truddy from Pentair Engineering. Also is Steve Shannon Jr. And Terry Williams are here tonight also on behalf of the client. Yeah, sidewalks at the mall. I think we've had a few discussions about those in the past, and here we are again. Anyways, I just, some things I want to just remind the council about. Whenever we did start talking about rural Canaan, we were here for that, and looking at how much, what is like a reasonable amount of sidewalk for that property. That was something we discussed when we were presenting rural Canaan at the time, as a guide to say, yeah, is this close to that area? And it was based upon the lot size of Rural King versus the mall property, and then how much perimeter sidewalk was around. And with that, that was used as a guide to determine, really areas for Rural King and how much we put in for that. Using that same criteria for this is a 1.28 acre partial. And if you use that same criteria on the conservative calculation, you're talking about 182 linear feet of sidewalk is what the number comes out to be. Right now, the sidewalk along College Avenue is going to be about 1,050 linear feet. It's well above that reasonable amount that we had talked about in the past project. And but also we looked at it and say, how we first started on Shiloh Road was, at least the client was saying, if I'm going to pay X amount of money, I'd like to have something that would benefit their store. But they're really, as we walk this, Dawn, Lindsay, and I walked this, and as you can just see that really, we probably need a sidewalk waiver, and for that narrow sidewalk, and a couple of the curves there weren't the best going around then. And there's no short one, and looking at the connections here, and looking at the township, I think what they're looking for is to complete some of these connections as we've been going through on these various plans. And so the client has agreed, easily with putting in that sidewalk along East College Avenue. And cost-wise, sidewalks are now up to about $60 a linear foot now. Like before I was using 40 in the number here. I just talked to a contractor, and Dawn was even giving me some numbers. And so, you're talking about almost $65,000 just in the sidewalk itself then for that. Then you start talking about the traffic signal. And basically, the other engineer involved with the project that we're working with, they have a traffic division, and they gave me some numbers on that. And, looking at it for just the northeast corner of the intersection, if we had to just upgrade that with the pad, the press curb, the signal heads, there's some rewiring, just timing adjustments, that in itself is about $69,000, of cost just for that. And that's just for doing the one corner on there. So, you're talking about almost $136,000 And then we go back to, what's a reasonable amount, a reasonable cost? Just as a guideline, we know that we're in front of you asking for a waiver, so we understand that. You can decide whatever you want. But I just wanted to point that cost out on there. And that, we would, we definitely, would be committed to this. Our client really doesn't, feel strong about being left out there if something does happen where they would have to do that connection to the signal also. It's, it's a extended amount, but based right now upon PennDOT's review of the HOP for the other connection over here, they are going to require connection on our side of the intersection. The other thing to note, I think, and this is more for council's information, like, as you say, you want, you say make a connection here, make a connection there. Like Dawn said with PennDOT, you touch one corner, you're touching them all. Pretty much, unless this pedestrian study, PennDOT has a format almost like a traffic study for doing pedestrian studies. And unless that disproves the circumstance of one of those corners being required on there. And so, either way, there's, and all of those corners are non-ADA compliant. They're old signals, old signal heads, old push buttons. They now have separate pedestals and items like that. There's no ADA ramps, no what else? Just a lot of ADA requirements. So PennDOT is saying, you can't just do one corner, and they want the whole thing updated on there. So that's something, even considering future recommendations or requirements on other projects, be aware if that signal or that intersection is not compliant, like for pedestrian crossings, PennDOT's going to want the whole thing updated.
Okay? So if I'm reading this right, the rock, 4,635 linear feet is what the ordinance requires. Is that correct, Don?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that $60 linear foot is 278,100. So there's a rock, and now we can find the hard place. But before we do that, questions to staff or engineer and or owner or developer?
On the whole thing or just on the sidewalk?
Whole thing.
Okay, all right. Let me start with the sidewalk, if I don't mind.
Yep.
Given the fact that there's a train track across the road there, would that be a potential reason for PennDOT to not require touching all four corners? I mean, that's,
Well,
in my recollection, that's why that sidewalk ends, is because you'd have to cross a train track.
well, yeah, when you get involved with PUC and the railroad, and so I won't say there's never going to be a sidewalk across the railroad, but I don't see it happening in the near future. But no, I don't believe that would stop them totally from, their goal is you can cross the street and you have somewhere to stand. What you do from there
Well, that's what I'm wondering, I mean, would
is a
you,
little bit open, but you need to have some, you have to have a refuge. So you cross the street, you'll have that 5x5 pad, and that's your refuge.
And then you take a breath and you
And look both
forge
ways.
ahead.
yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm just sort of seeing the sidewalk. What we're trying to do really is encircle the mall property, not so much go across the street, crossing the train tracks as much. I mean, while that would be nice, there may be some limitations on that. So I was just wondering if there's any possibility of just looking at those.
Well, and
Two corners.
the pedestrian study might say there's not a justification for the crossing, but in which case they would remove the signal on the other side, they'd remove the crosswalk.
Right, from Decibel Road, because
but
I don't see
I
people
don't
walking
think they'll
down
do that.
Decibel Road very often.
Yeah.
But, anyway, that was one question. The other one was, there's reference in here to sidewalk connecting Shiloh Road to the Automotive Service Center. Can you point out where that is? Because I see pedestrians coming in
little
more of an internal traffic, right?
It
From
is.
Aldi through the service center to the mall.
Well, Rural King built this sidewalk here that came in and tied into the corner of the parking lot. A lot
Right.
of times people then they go down to Planet Fitness, right, from the
Yeah.
intersection right down to here. And so we are tying in, right, we're striking one area off because this parking aisle is wide, and then put it right at this corner over and out into the intersection.
So it's along the one edge of the building and then turns.
Yeah.
Because again, I see the traffic going from maybe from your shop across to Sheetz or over to Aldi or down to, so to me, it's almost more important what the internal, pedestrian flow would
Yeah,
be.
there is pretty much, all the service bays are here. There's a sidewalk across the front of it in this area here.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the building. I mean,
And if you look at the back.
sadly, I spent a lot of money at the old Sears, so, I'm very likely, I may.
Hopefully you'll
uh,
spend a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly, he's hoping, right? Exactly, well.
And if you look at the back side, I think I have some pictures in my narrative, that it's on a steep slope coming down from the building. There's actually a stairway that comes down. There's also concern about undermining the footings. If you try to put a walk-in, you're going to be close to probably the footing elevations there, and that didn't make any sense. And so we just made the connection, out in that area
Yeah.
there.
Which will get you out, you can get out
Yeah.
to Shiloh Road, you can go down and cross, so
There's
there's
already a
there's good
curb cut
connectivity
there.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the curb cut was put in with Rural King.
Yep.
Goes down into there.
Yeah, I wasn't able to
Okay.
visualize what that
Yeah.
was, so that helps me a lot for that. I mean, I think this has been pretty well vetted and, to Don's satisfaction, to staff satisfaction. I mean, I'm good with what's here
Okay.
so far.
Carla?
I mean, are you asking for opinions or just questions?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so I would even be comfortable. I mean, I like what's presented. I really appreciate the narrative that goes along with it. I would even be comfortable just requiring sidewalk up to the intersection. Without touching that corner.
You're talking up front,
Up front, yeah, sorry.
college.
On College, and just cleaning it up that way. Given the size of the parcel with the
Sure.
whole, since that's what we did for rural,
Right.
yeah.
Well, like I said, we set the rock, now we're trying to set the hard place. I didn't see sidewalk to nowhere, anywhere.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm learning
You're
things.
connecting on a past sidewalk to nowhere that now is
Which is
going
no longer
somewhere. Is
nowhere.
going
You had us
somewhere.
at sidewalk to somewhere. I
Yeah.
also did have, sorry, if I may
Yep,
address,
please.
I had a little anecdote about, I don't see why that intersection wouldn't work if hoverboards had finally really come into fashion. It would be great, then you wouldn't need any of that. So that's like the hoverboard intersection of College Township, it's just waiting for its day.
Okay,
That
on
was
that
my
note,
little
obviously,
addendum.
your client hasn't purchased the property yet, and your seller has been challenging at times and everything, but clearly, the cost that we put is a consideration in the purchase and everything. But I like Carla and Paul, am very comfortable with what has been presented. I think that's fair, more than reasonable, and accomplishes some goals. I do agree that probably the casino is gonna get to the one for sure, and then it would be some irony for PennDOT to say, well, you gotta do the other. But still, if we understand that you're gonna connect on to wherever the casino stops, then I think we're in a good shape, if that's what I'm hearing correctly. Although I see the manager with a furrowed brow.
Well, I'm not sure, I mean, I heard Carla say sidewalk from the existing end of project that Rural King did along 26 to the intersection. And I'm assuming that there would be a connection made to the existing entryway sidewalk into the mall.
But avoiding the,
but avoiding any of PED signal work.
Oh, yes.
Well, okay, and that's.
But the other contingency is that, so the casino goes in and puts something in there, on their side. We want to make sure that
there's
those
something
connect,
to connect to.
those, and I think the language that Don used covered that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so just to clarify then, if some reason differing from what PennDOT's review was, and they don't do that, it would be upon our client to do that also, make that connection.
Yeah, that's where
That's kind of- yeah.
this is where I'm confused, okay, because they can build a sidewalk, they can connect into the existing sidewalk, into the entry to the mall.
Correct.
No ADA curb cut, no PED signal work, they're done,
Yes.
yeah,
okay? What's being suggested, the other element here that I keep hearing remnants of is, at some point, there's gonna have to be an ADA connection that gets made to clean up the hoverboard corner,
or just keep our fingers crossed.
or not. And
Well-
I think, I just wanna be sure we have it nailed down, what type of, I'm calling it responsibility, what the developers agreed to do
Right. Or,
versus what the overall expectation is of council and what Dawn's direction really is.
So if the casino is required to do the left half of that entrance, and PennDOT comes in and says, well, you're doing the left, you gotta do the right.
Okay?
They're gonna do the curb cut, put all that in and everything.
On the same side of the street.
On the right side of that entrance.
Of the entrance,
If they
understood.
do the left, they're gonna do the right.
Okay?
What I'm suggesting is if that occurs, that they would tie into that.
Yes.
just make sure it goes up to, to hit that.
If
That's-
they
And
do
if you-
not, then yes, we're saying tying into the existing,
And not having the corner
Okay,
touched.
I will admit that I'm the most spatially challenged person here. I'm not drawing this up. So I'm going to step out of the conversation.
Did we note that
I just want to be sure we understand what,
Well, is that not a thing?
Mr.
Can you
Engineer.
not put a sidewalk to nowhere? I thought that was what we always wanted to do. I mean, can you tie into the existing sidewalk and not hit the corner?
Well, what his drawing is showing actually is exactly that. They would loop around and tie into that existing sidewalk. And there's a note that says they would provide a connection to a pad that was built by others.
Yeah.
right.
okay,
So,
Yes.
that's, yeah.
that's fine.
My other thought,
That's different, that, for me, that helps. I get it.
We'll kind of have
right, my other thought is that should the pedestrian study go through and only the left-hand pad be upgraded and the right-hand pad not, I'm imagining we'll have a chance at this apple again at some time down the road, and that then can be a time for that improvement.
Correct. Yes.
I'm good now. With the
Okay.
pad,
Can I-
Well,
that,
that's good, yeah. I mean,
That-
you know, thanks you, that helped clarify.
Well, thanks to Don.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's Don's like, Paul.
Is that consistent with what I read here under 6? Construct an ADA curb ramp, install a pedestrian
No, I
push
think
button,
Don
and count down pedestrians.
Made some revisions.
Well, yeah,
But-
like I said, I was not aware of this,
Don, do you want a hard copy?
no, I'm fine.
I just,
my-
if we're
went to
gonna
sleep here.
be approving this, I mean, what is the modification to that based on the conversation we just had?
Right. The motion that is in the memo needs modified
Yes.
based on this discussion.
Right.
Specifically, that would be under the
I
number
would
6.
I would say you would strike number 2.
Construct the,
The second bullet under number 6, you
I'm
mean?
sorry, yes, the second bullet, not
bullet
number 2.
under number 6.
Yeah, the second bullet
Yeah,
under number
I was
6.
like, number 2 seems relevant.
so,
I'm sure they'd
but,
like number 2 to be struck.
however, we're keeping the fourth bullet, which would now be the third, if you.
Yes, I
right?
still think you need that. 'cause
I
we
do
don't know
too,
what's coming
because
out of
we
this.
don't know what's gonna happen at that other corner, and so it's not like we're entirely writing off the possibility of that, right? To
gotta
install
be
landing
clear.
pad. I'm sorry?
You said that, but yeah, just be.
The ADA curb ramp, the pedestrian push button, and the countdown pedestrian signal. That's entirely off the table, or
That's what I
is
recommend.
that going to be dependent on what PennDOT makes the casino developer do?
Oh.
Well, it's tied
That's
to
That's where I'm a little
ramp provided
confused.
by others. So where does that language fall into this, Don?
That's,
Well, the one thing is that if that does not get constructed by the, by the casino, PennDOT made the comment, because we talked about just sort of cutting around and not doing that intersection. They had a little bit of concern that if there was nothing there, you still are taking a sidewalk to nowhere. To, I'm sorry I said that, but. So I would like to, we could take 2 out, or the second bullet,
yes.
and leave that fourth bullet in, because depending on what,
that was my understanding.
More than likely, but, you know, what I'm thinking, you know, is if this is connected on this side, and they're gonna make one crossing across
Yeah.
College Avenue, it's just gonna be which side on there is what's gonna happen.
is that sidewalk going to be in or out of right of way as you're going down College Avenue?
It's gonna be on both here, because the right of way is kind of right in the middle of that area between the curb and that.
Okay, so you will need an HOP for
HOP
that?
for that
Okay,
part of it,
that's,
yeah.
I thought so.
Now, like it says, it's very close to the road here, where a lot of the stuff we're gonna do is gonna be out of the right of way, but we'll still have to get an HOP for what we're doing here.
Could I make a suggestion? So the first bullet, construct a sidewalk along College Avenue from the terminus of the sidewalk installed by Rural Clean to a point to tie into the existing sidewalk to the mall entrance, or
As
a
shown
ramp.
on their plans dated July 14th, because those plans show.
July
that-
14th.
Yep,
Okay.
and that is the right date
Or-
on it, Mark, I believe so.
A ramp installed by others.
And
And
to a ramp installed by others.
Yeah.
That's what their plan is showing now, is that they would loop around to tie into the sidewalk going up the entrance.
Okay.
And that if there is a ramp there, they will tie into it.
right, that's what he's saying.
Yeah, so you can say
or-
and.
Okay, and, all right. Okay.
And any ramp.
And,
Okay.
if there isn't one to tie into.
So
Yeah.
if that's true, then the last line of your note should also be modified on the fourth bullet, right, which would now be the third if you strike the second. The Nittany Casino is responsible for improvements at both corners of the intersection potentially.
Potentially.
Actually,
we
yeah,
don't-
based on what I just learned tonight, yes.
Okay,
Well, you have that, and then there's nothing to say that the mall doesn't come back and do something else that we may
Yeah.
require that to be
Yeah.
done. So
Right.
it's just, not
So-
just the casino that might be applicable to this, and that's why, it's important by other.
Yeah.
the Nittany Casino is responsible for possible ADA improvements to the intersection. On
I
both
personally
sides.
would leave Nittany Casino, reference Nittany Casino. If there's any other, I'd make it others as opposed to specifying that the Nittany
Others.
Casino does something.
Does that need to be part of, I think it should be part of the motion, yes?
Yeah, just change the Nittany Casino to others.
Okay.
At the intersection, not just the northwest corner, but possibly the northeast corner as well. Okay. Strawberry Royal King to tie into
So while Paul's working, are Mr. Shannon and Mark, are you clear what we're saying?
Yeah, that's kind of what we had proposed on.
Do you have Terry's permission to agree to that?
Yeah, one other thing to include, I know, it may be in the comments, but part of our thing also was a waiver of stormwater, because it was such a small.
Well, yeah, no, that waiver was
What?
not needed.
Yeah,
A waiver was not needed, that was
okay.
per our
I'm not sure
ordinance.
they need to approve that or not.
Yeah,
De minimis.
no.
Okay.
De minimis. Cool. Okay, is Paul's still fighting through?
Well, I'm-
You're good?
Yeah, I'm excited that, you know,
So tie
that
into the
we
existing sidewalk near the main.
can see some redevelopment of that, or
Yeah.
re-life
Yeah,
of
Are
that
you
parcel.
comfortable?
So it's good.
I think
Good
so.
stuff.
Okay.
I think I can manage.
We're ready for you.
You're ready for me? Mr. Chair, I move to approve the subdivision of tax parcel 19-28-89 for the former Sears Service Center preliminary/final subdivision plan dated May 16th, 2022, and last revised June 6th, 2022.
June
Subject-
6th or, I'm sorry, June 6th or June 14th?
July 14th.
July
Or
14th.
July 14th. That was the other part I missed. July 14th, 2022, subject to the following conditions. 1, within 90 days from the date of approval by council, all conditions must be satisfied, final signatures must be obtained, and the plan must be recorded with the Center County Recorder of Deeds office. Failure to meet the 90-day recordation time requirement will render the plan null and void. 2, pay all outstanding review fees. 3, address to the satisfaction of township engineer any outstanding plan review comments from staff. 4, fully comply with College Township Code Section 108-12. 5, post surety as approved by the township engineer prior to recordation. 6, approve the sidewalk waiver request as prepared by Pantera Engineering with the following conditions. Construct a sidewalk along College Avenue from the terminus of the sidewalk installed by Rural King to tie into the sidewalk near the main entrance into the mall at College Avenue. Construct sidewalk connecting Shiloh Road sidewalk.
Time. On the first bullet, don't we want to add the
Oh,
and ramp?
and to a ramp installed by others. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yes.
And as shown.
Yeah.
Should we mention?
Should I read that again?
Yeah.
Okay. Construct a sidewalk along College Avenue from the terminus of the sidewalk installed by Rural King to a point that ties into the existing sidewalk near the main entrance into the mall from College Avenue and to a ramp installed by others. Construct sidewalk connecting Shiloh Road sidewalk to the Automotive Service Center as shown on Pantera plans dated July 14th, 2022. Any modifications to the above as may be required by PennDOT review of the pedestrian study and is agreed to by the township engineer is related to the corners of the intersection only. Note, improvements to the southeastern or southwestern corner of the intersection may be required. Staff is not recommending that the developer be responsible for improvements at Decibel Road. Others will be responsible for improvements at the intersection.
How about northeast and northwest corner of the intersection?
Yeah, you only referenced northwestern. but
Yeah, that
north-
probably should.
Northeast,
Yeah.
northwest,
Okay.
and/or northwest.
Okay,
Good
northeast.
times.
Yeah.
Now you did it.
The others will be responsible for improvements at the northeast and/or northwestern intersection.
Corner of the intersection.
Corner.
Okay. I have a motion.
That was a hash.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Terry, please.
Mr. Chairman, just one point of clarification.
Please.
The plan that's referred to as the July plan has one slight addition when the final copy comes to the township for signature. I'm very appreciative of staff's efforts and your solicitor in trying to work out the difficulty of who's going to sign the plan and where. So there's one more signature block that will be added to the final plan. All of the engineering will be the same, but there'll be one more signature block that makes it clear the developer is signing and another signature block for the owner.
For the owner. Excellent. Thank you, sir. Okay, any further discussion? call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Excellent. Thank you,
As
gentlemen.
always, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Stay dry.
Okay, reports, manager's update.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sleep at the wheel. Imagine that, right? There we go. Okay, thank you. I did want to report on several items as far as updates since our last meeting. We had reported with respect to Pike Street traffic calming project that we did encounter some slight contamination of excavated soil. We worked with Pannoni Engineering to confirm what we were dealing with there. On a hazardous level, it's relatively low, but it does need to be transported and disposed of in an appropriate hazardous landfill.
It's not hazardous.
Okay, well, contaminated.
Yeah, it's
a
not
contaminated
hazardous and it's not
land- I'm
clean.
sorry.
Different
Wrong
between
word.
Wayne County
And
and
this one's,
Ohio.
yeah, this is actually in New Jersey,
Oh,
or Maryland, I'm sorry.
Very good. So we're in the process of trying to get the excavated material out of the way of the contractors who are actually doing very well. Dawn, I don't know if you have anything you want to add as far as progress, kind of your assessment.
Well, at the corner there at Dale Street, we had several massive inlets required, which took a long time to get formed up and going, but now they're moving, they're up to Mountain Road, Mountain Indy Road. So they're starting to move well.
Good. The second item I wanted to update is on the 14th, we did have the non-mandatory pre-submission meeting with respect to the Dale Summit area plan for the RFQ. We had 8 or 9 participants sit in on that Zoom. It lasted about an hour. There were a variety of questions that were asked. We, as a result of that conversation, put out an addendum to clarify some of the questions that were asked during that time. We felt it went very well. We were encouraged by, the participation and the degree of interest, I believe that was expressed as through the questions that were asked. And we are on track to receive the submissions of the RFQ on August 1st. And with that, whether it's tonight or at another time, we will need to have a conversation about who from council, along with members of planning commission and members of staff, will be involved in the review of the RFQ. So kind of as a placeholder in your mind, just be contemplating some of that.
If I may, Adam, just to
Please.
add, from that perspective, the RFQ does reference the participation of 2 members of council, as well as 2 members from planning commission.
Moving on, the solar power purchase agreement project has been delayed for a couple of months. Apparently, we had a late joiner to the consortium. Bellefonte has asked for time to evaluate as to whether or not they will actually participate. And so the RFP that we had anticipated being on the street by this time has been delayed for a couple of months. So we'll continue to monitor that. LTAC meeting, we did have an opportunity, LTAC had an opportunity, let me back up. Let me start that again. Staff did have the opportunity to meet with Trans Associates in advance of the LTAC meeting to review the work that was assigned to Trans Associates relative to putting together a plan for speed humps as well as for pinch points. And so we reviewed that, determined that it was in position to be discussed with the community. And so that meeting has been scheduled for the 27th, for next week. The last item that I want to report on quickly was the Thompson Woods Preserve and our intermunicipal agreement with the borough. I did receive word from the borough manager that he anticipates that in August, the State College Borough Council will be considering that intermunicipal agreement. So that process, although it's been long, does continue to move forward. And I and the borough manager are optimistic that we'll be able to reach agreement on that instrument. So without any further ado, I will end the manager's update and entertain any questions from council.
Questions for the manager, Carl?
None.
Paul?
No questions, just that I really like the personal robocall to remind me of the LTAC meeting coming up as a resident. So actually, in all seriousness, that was a nice feature to get the call as well as another notification.
That particular system works very well when we're dealing with a neighborhood-oriented kind of situation. It is primarily there for use in public works and water type related situations, and we do use it frequently. But in the case of neighborhood type meetings, I think it also works equally well. So thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
I have no questions, just to thank you for your outgoing correspondence to our recent ABC departures. Appreciate that. COG Regional County and Liaison Reports. Carla, anything?
Yes.
Just what you submitted.
What I submitted. Any questions? It's a little convoluted, maybe.
Paul, any questions?
No, wasn't convoluted to me.
Okay.
Excellent. I was gonna
Great.
say. Is that it?
That's it.
Paul?
Yes, 3 meetings, actually. Last week, the Public Safety Committee met. I was not in attendance, unfortunately, but I was able to get a synopsis and listen to the recording of that. The main item, the only real action item was the committee's approval pursuing a potential purchase of an attenuator vehicle, which will serve as a protection for fire equipment, which would be very lengthily, it would take a very long time to replace, even if we were able to financially do it. So from a cost savings perspective, risk reward, better to buy one of those attenuation vehicles which can absorb the impact of even a large tractor trailer to basically protect the fire apparatus. So that seemed like a very reasonable request given the current situation, so the committee approved that and recommended it be passed along to the Finance Committee for further comment and hopefully eventually the general forum. That's it.
Okay.
The second, that was just it.
That was just one
Public
for that
safety.
one.
Sorry. Yes. Yesterday morning.
Just, if I could add on, so just to understand how the fire company is operating, they're currently using fire trucks to protect their members.
Yes.
And so now they want the attenuator to protect the fire truck, which is protecting the members.
Correct, yeah. Obviously, protecting the people is the most important thing, but the reality is there's not a lot of extra equipment that isn't in use. So if we lose a piece of equipment, if Alpha loses a piece of equipment, it isn't a matter necessarily of it being uninsured or whatever, we'd be fully, but the reality is in today's market, we would not receive that replacement equipment for up to 24 months or longer. Therefore, be erring on the side of caution to have a vehicle that could absorb that potential impact and save the more valuable piece of equipment seemed a very reasonable request. So that's it on the public safety. Yesterday, the College Township IDA met. Continuing to make progress. on process and communications. I will say that there was some rather spirited conversations around the table, but while they're continuing to work through some issues with clients and the relationship with other partners in the organization, I feel like we are making progress. I would actually invite the manager to make any comments that he feels on that, but
It's a process. And actually, I think that they are being introduced, in my opinion, to some good habits. I think the regular committee meetings is immensely helpful. Most of the business, most of the actual work that has been occurring relative to their own internal processes has been occurring in the committee meetings, and I think it's been going very well. Where we presently have some challenges is simply working out the relationship type things with external entities, whether that's the chamber or others, the Center County Industrial Development Corporation and their revolving loan committee. Again, that is very process oriented. I think those are issues that can readily be resolved. And I believe that we're really now at a position where we can sit down and have a very substantive conversation about how we're going to move through those participant type processes. Quite often what you have is a situation where both the Industrial Development Corporation, which is the chamber side of things for short, and the IDA will work in partnership. And at the moment, there's a few breakdowns in how that relationship manifests itself, but I think we can get that resolved.
yeah.
That's all that I would say about that. So, good progress, lots to do yet,
Still.
still.
Yes. That's the best summary I can provide of that
Okay.
meeting. Any questions?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And then last night, the Spring Creek Watershed Commission met. The major takeaways from that is the Phase 3 working group. There's now a plan, a preliminary plan in place for them to work off of when they convene, which hopefully will take place in the next couple of weeks, their initial meeting. So they have a template and some things to do to help guide them in terms of the committees, the subcommittees, the tasks. So a lot of work has been done on that, and we're hopeful that that will help expedite that Phase 3 process. The other thing is we approved the first slate of nominees for the Spring Creek Watershed Mentor Award. It was nearly 24 people. We're currently preparing a press release, and we'll try and have, some kudos and recognition going out on that here very soon in the next week. So I will mention it the next time. That's it.
Anything more?
No, sir.
Okay. Since last we met, I had Parks Governance. I will just offer the conversations continue. Very professional, at times in the weeds, when we're trying to get into the air, but we're getting there. We'll tackle it again next week. Finance Committee met July 14th. A lot of the stuff that we discussed, we'll be seeing on the general forum agenda next week. The two items that that don't fall under that are we received the draft business plan for the Parks Mobile Concessions Unit. Very interesting. That was what we asked out of last year's budget process, was before we can even think about this, we need some type of business plan. They came back with a very in-depth document. We offered various comments and everything. They're going to fine tune it and bring it back again to us next month. The Parks Authority has already blessed it operationally, and now we're trying to put the financial side of it together. The other one that we received the preliminary fund balance policy recommendation from the area finance directors. Very interesting stuff. Bob Long, College Township's finance director, presented on behalf of the finance directors. Interesting approach. They're looking at establishing some things that we'll be very familiar with, because it mirrors a lot of how College Township's currently doing it. But a new element that they're proposing is a line of credit type device to cover cash flow items rather than requiring whatever municipal dollars coming in and everything. They'll leave it at the municipalities as long as possible. And that was something that College Township has pushed for, is that the College Township tax dollars stay in College Township as long as possible. So that was the bones. Now they're gonna start putting the meats to it. There's some legalities on, like, in general, a municipal, like, we cannot have a line of credit, but there's other ways of accomplishing that. And so they're gonna research that. And end of the day, it's COG. It's different than they don't have the same stuff, but they may, because of as an extension of us. But they're gonna explore ways of doing it. It makes a lot of sense. Hopefully they can find a way to do that. So those are the two on the finance committee. Executive committee, again, you're gonna see the general forum agenda is already out, and so you have a pretty good idea on that. On top of that, we received a presentation about Pennsylvania redistricting and potential meetings with our new PA senators and next year our new representatives. So the first step of that is going to be an informational presentation on, the impacts of redistricting. Wow, I'm having a hard time with that word. I think that's coming in September, just to educate, use our COG audience to further get the word out on how things are going. The other one was COG committee and general forum meeting assessment. If you remember, I asked for feedback on how things are going and everything. There's still, I think there's an overriding fear that Zoom is going to go away, or hybrid, that we're going to yank that out. Hybrid's here to stay. It's just how it's going to be used, and when you're using it was the big thing that I pushed. Be engaged. There was one comment made that leave your camera up all the time, and I don't think that proves engagement. I think you can't. You need to be focused on the meeting that you're in, or please ask for an alternate if you don't feel you can do it. I even threw out, don't do it unsafely, because I know for a fact that we had one member that was doing a Zoom while they were driving, which I just don't agree with at all. And
During the discussion?
yeah, well, for the meeting, yeah, they were driving, and it's like, either pull over or get somebody else to attend for you if it's that busy. There was an extended discussion about printed packets, printed agendas and meeting information and everything like that. There was strong pushback from most of the municipalities that most of us have moved to this to prevent that. But what we're gonna do is have stuff available at the limited quantities at the meetings. And if there's specific requests, those need to be put to COG staff and asked for. We're not just gonna print the entire agenda packages and things like that. So that'll be a work in progress. We also discussed establishing a parliamentary procedure training for COG chairs. And we're going to look to implement that probably in February, after our reorganizations and everything. The hope is that conveys back to the individual municipalities, and I think we're going to open it to all, because I think the more you know about that, the more you're able to participate better in meetings, as well as conduct meetings and stuff. And finally, the COG, as you're all aware, is doing a compensation study and everything. That's gone forward. The first step of that was a job description review by the individual employees, and then that needs the comments from there need to be reviewed with the employee supervisor. In this case, the executive director works for the executive committee, and so we reviewed that with Eric Nornberg. Very minor comments. If you recall, that job description was reviewed in 2019, so it's fairly fresh. One thing that was added or requested is to put a emphasis on building, not just working through problems with municipal managers and staff, but building relationships with municipal managers and staff. So that was the only addition to it. And again, this is just the first step in that process. For general form, I will just give you a heads up. There are two critical pieces. One, Paul's already talked about, the fire vehicle purchase. What is going to occur is there's going to be a request for a budget amendment of about $100,000. That will come from the existing fund balance of the fire apparatus capital, and that's towards the attenuator. The other thing, the second part of that is there's going to be a request for exception from the COG purchasing policy, and that will be for a sole source, because right now there's only one guy making these. So we need to authorize staff to move forward quickly and with when the opportunity presents itself. So we're going to we'll present it with those two portions of the fire vehicle. The second one is the COG intermunicipal agreement, which is in reference to the COG building. And there's going to be a amendment to that lays out that at the end of the lease, which is in 2028, that the COG building will convey to COG. And that will require a unit vote and a unanimous unit vote. So the big thing on there, and unit votes provide, if you don't have enough people there to do that, then it goes to your municipality directly and you have to do it at a meeting. So
How's that looking?
I hate to say it, but Half Moon's a wild card at this point, whether they're going to have a majority at the meeting such that they can conduct that vote there.
On Monday night.
On Monday night.
Does that have to be unanimous?
It has to be unanimous. So there was two elements. Number one, I don't know if Half Moon is going to have enough to make a vote on Monday. The other part, there was some concerns expressed by Harris. I think those have been worked through, but we don't know until we're there.
Sure.
So those are the a couple big out of the ordinary things for you for Monday night. Did you have anything on that?
No, I was just, I'm not going to be available, and I'm going to be out of town.
Okay.
And I was just mentioning to Mike, if in fact there's going to be and depending upon how many of the College Township representatives are physically present versus participating via Zoom, there may be a need to moderate that, and so I'll try to get details to Mike on that.
Good deal.
I'm planning to be there in person.
We're trying to push again and prepare people. The one other thing on the meetings, I was hitting home. COG staff has made it so easy. with the RSVPs, in-person, remote, all this kind of stuff. You know, it's too easy to do. Please do it and use it, because it does help staff and general forum leadership to manage the meetings and everything. So that's a lot, but that represents my big three. So unless is there any questions on those? Cool.
No.
Staff, PC, other committee reports. We do not have a PC liaison. Lindsay, can you offer us anything about the meeting?
Yeah, we discussed the implementation of the pedestrian facilities master plan. We gave the planning commission members the proposed changes to the ordinances that will implement the plan. They were pleased. They had I think one thing to change. But they were happy. They don't want to really see it back. So that will be coming to council eventually. And we also discussed, we didn't have a full planning commission, so they didn't want to make any nominations for anyone who would be on the committee to review the RFQs. So we just discussed it, and they asked for some more information, how many hours you think it'll be, how many we may receive. So it was a good meeting.
Good.
They're excited about the pedestrian facilities master plan and seeing it through.
Excellent.
Great.
Any questions for Lindsay? Okay. Diversity, equity, and inclusion reports. Anything from staff or council to offer towards that? And also, we open it to the public. Should they have anything to offer this year?
I'm not sure, did we report on the attendance at the diversity
No.
conference?
I
don't-
read something.
There were at least two members of council, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, from
Me
that.
and
Paul
Eric were
Eric,
there.
And I know that Mike had attended as well, had attended that conference. I don't know if there was any report or any summation of that was apropos.
Very, very well attended. My first opportunity to attend, but I heard folks discussing how it continues to grow. It was nice, the Penn State president offered kind of the introductory comments, so it was a nice opportunity to hear from her as well. Great sessions that I attended. Paul, I know, and Eric, we were in some of the same ones and some variety. The ones that I was in were high quality and very, very educational. So overall, I thought it was very, very worthwhile, worth the time, and plan to be back again next year.
Yeah, same. I mean, the quality of the presentations. I was in and out all day, but I mean, it was a wide range of things too. It was about, the business climate. It was about, tourism and recreational opportunities. It was very comprehensive. I was very impressed. I will definitely try and go again next
You
year.
can start to see, not to step on your toes there, Paul, they're building it into kind of educational tracks.
Yeah.
Because most of the sessions that I attended were kind of HR driven. But yeah, it was a broad variety of opportunities.
One other item, we do anticipate within the next week to 10 days that there will be a piece about municipal diversity that appears in, I believe it's CDT. I know that Mike had sat for an interview with respect to policies, procedures, things like that. And I also know that other municipalities in the center region have been interviewed for that as well. So that is forthcoming.
Great. The only other thing I would offer is that the center region, the Penn State local government office hosted a welcome reception with the new Penn State president for all the center region local government folks on the 22nd. Nice, very nice event, and very much look forward to working with the new president.
And her senior staff, who are pretty much all there as well.
Yes.
So it's great.
Okay, anything else under reports? If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda for July 21st, 2022 consists of CA1, minutes from our June 13th special council work session, our June 16th public hearing on conditional use for 127 Dale Street, June 16th regular council meeting minutes. Under CA2 correspondence, receipt and approval, we have an email from Andrew Schaefer dated June 14th, 2022 regarding updated petitions opposing proposed casino at Nittany Mall. We have an email from Susan Strauss dated June 14th, 2022 regarding urgent request to deny casino license at the Nittany Mall. We have an email from Andrew Schaefer dated June 20th, 2022 regarding final tally of public feedback submitted to Pennsylvania Gaming Commission Board before submission deadline on June 12th, 2022. We have an email from Jeremy Spitana dated June 24th, 2022 regarding DLV Light. We have an email from Neil Brandt dated July 7th, 2022 regarding Thompson Woods Preserve. We have an audit report from Fiore, Fidelli, Snyder, Carruthers LLP dated June 28th, 2022 regarding DEP Municipal Recycling Grant Program. We have an email from Andrew Schaefer dated July 17th, 2022 regarding impact reports for proposed casino at Nittany Mall. And finally, we have a letter from co-chairs, Neighborhood Traffic Calming Committee dated July 18th, 2022 regarding Center Hills Village safety measures. Do any members of council wish any of those items pulled?
D and CA2D and G.
CA2D and G, okay? Okay. With that, I'll accept the motion to approve the consent agenda less CA2D and G.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. CA2D.
All right, so this was regarding a light over at Daleview Park. I guess I'm just curious from staff what this was kind of news to me. Maybe I was in the dark about it. Yeah, where does this letter stand in the process, I guess?
So this topic came up, we had received some emails from some residents about some nefarious activities in the parking lot off of Goldfinch. And we did request additional police presence. Meanwhile, Parks and Rec was having their the drive-around meeting in June. Yes, I don't remember which month I'm in, June. And we added that particular park to the group, or to the meeting. So Parks and Rec did meet with a group of residents out there to further discuss it, so that Parks and Rec could then make a decision, obviously, to forward to council. They have not done that. They've asked for additional information. They do not meet in July. We won't meet again until August, second Monday in August. So at that point in time, Parks and Rec will meet and further discuss it. And then obviously whatever recommendation we brought to council. But the gist of it was that the request was for dawn to dusk, maybe motion censored light in the parking lot to hopefully thwart any type of additional after hours activity.
A dawn to
Did I say that wrong?
dusk
I did.
light?
No, it was.
It's just the light during the daytime.
No,
Well,
no.
it would be dawn to dusk.
Dusk to dawn, dusk to dawn. That's okay, I wanted to say right earlier.
Keeping you guys on your toes.
I'm sorry, yes.
Don't be sorry. I just want to make sure I
No,
understood that
you're right.
if we were lighting the day or not.
Yeah, I said that completely wrong. Dusk to dawn light with a motion sensor, most likely. So right now I'm researching types of light, what it might cost to get electricity there because there is no electricity. I'm also researching some options like solar, if that's possible, so.
Okay, can we just make sure that Jeremy's letter carries through over to the
Sure.
Parks and Rec so that it doesn't get lost in the consent agenda? Thank you. All right, and then G, I was reading through. First of all, I just want to publicly acknowledge that, as always, council sees the correspondence about the casino sorry, I'm scrolling down looking for this G.
Yeah,
There it
there's
is.
a lot to it.
Yeah, so there was just one, as I read through it, there are often pieces that, that I feel maybe paint the picture in a way, that I just like people to be educated on how these things work, and this is just one thing that I just wanted to correct. Mr. Schaefer has worked assiduously on, pulling the community together to talk about how they feel about the potential pending casino, and I applaud his efforts for sure, and he has done a lot of research, and I actually did really appreciate his sending this York Daily Record article about police calls in a real case scenario. This isn't hypothetical. We get a lot of hypothetical, but I do absolutely appreciate this type of thing. I just did want to correct just one assertion that was made. Well, I don't know if it's correcting. It's at least just pointing it out. So what he's doing in this letter is comparing our current State College Borough Police Department calls and how many are made versus what percentage would be increased by the casino. And maybe there's a question in this too. I just wanted to point out that specifically the casino is policed by the state police. So the calls that were increased in this specific township, I do even think that the York Daily Record calls it out as the increase of calls for the state police, not for their local township police. So it is different, and we're kind of comparing apples to oranges in a way. I'm not discounting the comment. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. And that's correct, right? Like I have backup about that the casino is policed by the state.
The study that was prepared, that was submitted along with the Nittany Gaming's application to the Gaming Control Board, specifically identified State College Borough Police additional calls. It was very specific. It did not talk about overall police calls. It was talking about impacts to the community. And given that College Township is policed through contract with the State College Borough Police Department, they specifically were referencing the projected, and I think it's even mentioned here, the 6.6 additional calls per month on average for the local police department. That study did not at all address state police calls or state police actions that were being taken in lieu of any of the local police actions. So, I mean, I'm not trying to split a hair, but
Okay, that's fair.
I think that the impact study was very specific to looking at impacts to the local community. So, if in fact the York article is in fact referring to overall increase in calls, all of which are being responded to by the state police, that was not taken into consideration. State police was not taken into consideration in the impact study that was provided by the applicant to the Gaming Control Board. It was a local impact.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay.
Right, and the key distinction for that is calls that happen on the licensed premise is a state police enforcement.
Right, that's what I'm trying to bring out, yeah.
So any additional calls to the local are
Off-premise.
potential off-premise increases and everything, and that's to be determined. And one of the things that we as a council, we're going to be monitoring the hell out of that. Absolutely. And going to the owners of, if we're seeing stuff spill out from their doors, we're going to have a lot of conversations. But we haven't seen that.
May I ask a clarifying question? So when you say premises, is that the property lines or the building itself, the walls of the building, anything that would be in the parking lot, anything like that, that would be township, state
That would be
college.
Oh, okay.
That was my.
Well, it depends, and then I'll just throw my liquor license hat on.
Okay.
And actually, I should just shut up and let Mark speak to it, but,
Oh, you're
you know, you run into similar situations with that the Bureau of Liquor Enforcement of the state police enforces a lot of the liquor code stuff, and everything. They take up residence in the Hamilton Square parking lot every weekend, but, you as a licensee license different areas of your property. And so I don't know how gaming, I'll be the first to admit, I don't know how gaming goes. They may have to include the parking. And like an example, if you remember, one of the big things of concerns at the hearing was that they police the parking lot to make sure that
Kids,
irresponsible parents aren't leaving their children in the vehicles and stuff. So there may be a licensing component in the parking lot. I honestly don't know.
Right. So again, this isn't to negate the concern, this isn't to
No.
negate the numbers, this is just to, just to point out exactly what was called out, just the difference between State College Borough Police and the state police, and what, what increases may or may not occur. So again, thanks to all the people who continue to give us their feedback. Thanks, that's it for me.
Excellent.
May I ask just a clarifying question? Have we heard anything more since the closing of the public comment period? Is there any anticipated?
Well, there's a couple of things. In the manager's update, and I didn't touch on it, the traffic study that had been submitted as part of Nittany Gaming's land development plan. It was reviewed by College Township's traffic engineer, Trans Associates, as well as council leading up to the approval of the land development plan. Was in fact submitted as part of their package of materials to the Gaming Control Board. And Dawn, you're gonna have to help me out. PennDOT central office has a division that is called
Bureau of BOMO, Bureau of Maintenance and Operations.
That division made a request of the developer to further study specific Category 3 casinos in terms of traffic counts, volumes, ingress, egress, those types of things, before they would deem their application complete on behalf of the Gaming Control Board. So they did complete that study. Nittany Gaming did continue their contract with Worcester. They completed that study. They did the counts at the Category 3 casinos and basically reached, in essence, the same conclusion that we had reviewed as part of the land development plan with that similar study. That has now been submitted to the Bureau of Operations and Maintenance. They're reviewing that. The very unofficial word is that perhaps sometime by the end of this year, it will actually be on the docket for the Gaming Control Board to take some action. But that remains to be seen. So that's the latest update that I have.
That's helpful to me. And if you rename them Bureau of Operations and Maintenance, it becomes BOOM. I noticed.
Missed opportunity.
I know.
Okay, hoverboards. CA2, if you're comfortable to make a motion to
Yeah, I
approve
move to
CA2,
approve CA2, D, and G.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Old business, OB1, ordinance O-22-02, wireless communication facilities. Lindsay has already provided us a brief update. We heard some comments during the public session of this. Any questions on any of the public comments that were received or any further clarification needed from staff?
If I may,
Please.
I don't have any questions. Mr. Feo, however, spoke to us about looking beyond the aesthetic placement of towers and into the science and safety, and I just want to clarify again that PA Act 50 is not something that we were able to approve or disapprove. It was given to us by the state, and I do encourage people to take the same vigor that they've come to our meeting with, which I appreciate, and give it to the state as well, give it to your representatives, because the fact is, a lot of this is outside of our control, and I do intend to vote for this evening, and a large reason for that is not because it's perfect or because I like it, but because we need the law on the books so that we can protect our community, frankly. And furthermore, Mr. Bazan, I am inspired and awed by, and Tanya, his wife. I so appreciate their work and their communication on this topic, and their help and support as we navigated through it. The decisions that we made we did incorporate some of his recommendations. The ones that we decided not to incorporate, I speak for myself only. I'm not willing to put our legal standing of this ordinance at risk without there already, I'm okay with some other township taking those risks, and if they stand up in court, then I will open this ordinance, I will, move to open this ordinance again. Until that point, I'm not willing to put, again, our residents at risk of us not having a standing ordinance and these communications companies being able to put these wherever they want. So I feel that we've done the best we can, given the very narrow boundaries that were handed to us from the powers that be. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Carla. Paul, anything?
No, I think Carla said it very well, and this is something that we have spent a considerable amount of time and energy and effort on. I think we've pushed it as far as we were allowed, given the requirements of Act 50. Again, appreciate everybody's input on this, but I also have to say too, having this on the books also protects us from, if we didn't, then it would kind of be the Wild West in terms of what we might end up with. So this does at least give us some control, and the phrase was used earlier, this is a living document as well. Should something change, whether at the legislature or with the regulatory agencies or something like that, then I believe we would be very willing and anxious actually to revisit this, given some broader parameters than what we find ourselves in at the moment. So to Carla's point, not perfect, but given where we are, we're a lot further down the road than we were before, given this. So that's it for me.
Thanks. Yes, unfortunately, we were kind of painted into a corner from the state and federal levels. Where we had leeway, we took it, we used it, and as much as we could. The other reality is if we don't enact it, we're going to have even less coverage than if we enact it. So where we see opportunities to add to it, to Paul's point, living document, we'll make it stronger as more and more, if more information comes out. That's how we got here. It wasn't that long ago we enacted the first wireless communication facility ordinance, and here we are.
It wasn't a while before that we enacted the actual first one.
Yeah. So wireless communication and chickens, yep, we've got, College Township's got that mastered. But at any rate, you know, I definitely would like to get this onto the books and then always keep our eyes and ears open and everything. So towards that, unless there's further discussion, accept a motion to approve ordinance O-22-02.
So moved.
We have a motion,
Second.
we have a second. At this point, I'll open it up to the public. Does anybody have anything to speak to council about this? Seeing or hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
OB2, Climate Change Resolution R-22-11.
So did you want to do a motion to approve the manual?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, actually, we have two motions on that.
I move
I-
to approve the manual,
Design manual.
design manual.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll second
We
that.
have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, let's get that in there.
Yeah, no, that's a critical piece.
Yeah.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
Very much.
And thank you all
Okay,
for your work.
OB2, Climate Change Resolution R-22-11. Mike?
Yeah, not a whole lot additional to add beyond the kind of what I framed up during the public hearing. As noted, the resolution itself has not changed from when you saw it last in June. And just to underscore your intent for advancing this resolution, to advance the overall educational and public awareness process on the impacts of climate change, and to lend the township's voice in support of legislation combating climate change through the reduction of carbon emissions. Would also call your attention, we did have, while we didn't have any comments tonight at the public hearing, we did have a couple written comments submitted under this, but beyond that, nothing further to add.
Comments, questions, concerns, or a motion?
I'll just make a motion
Please.
to adopt resolution R-22-11.
I'll second.
We have a second?
Can I ask a
Yes,
real quick?
please.
That correspondence, will that be included in the next consent agenda?
It was in the,
It-
it was in there.
It was in under the
It was in with the public hearing.
this evening.
Oh, it was in the
It
public
wasn't
hearing.
called
so,
out,
well,
though.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
sorry
right.
about that.
No, that's okay.
Missed that
I just wanted to
during
make
the
sure
report.
it became part of the record
Public
because
record.
we want to take it. And the only other thing that I'd like to add, this is entirely consistent with other efforts that we've been making at the COG level, that we've made here at the township level. And, you know, I've said this before, but I think it does merit our attention and is relevant to us and to the residents we serve.
Good deal. And I appreciate that we took the extra step of a public hearing, allowing our residents to have an opportunity to speak into it rather than just think that we speak solely for them and everything. And most things we do, if we have an opportunity though, we should give them, we afford them opportunities on sidewalk, master plans, and this and that and the other things, so this should be no different. So, so we have a motion, we have a second, and anyone want to speak? Nothing? Okay, call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question in terms of the nature of the resolution.
Yep.
Does council have a desire for this to go specific places?
Yeah, right? No?
Well,
Well, we're calling on the United States Congress, so I would suggest that
Hopefully
it
we-
probably
They don't just
ought
keep
to
the
go.
their ear to the
You know, you would
train
think
tracks on that?
You would think that they.
Well,
would
we
know
have
what's
a
going
couple
on.
of senators and a congressman. Might be.
Could we do a press release?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay.
Is that sufficient, or should we forward it to our congressman, or the
Oh,
congressman?
I think we definitely.
I don't think it's an either or. I think
Yeah.
you were thinking of it as a both. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that'd be great.
Thanks for following up on that.
Yeah.
Okay, MB1, Evergreen Heights Workforce Housing. Adam/Lindsay.
Yeah, basically, you will recall, we approved earlier this year the Evergreen Heights Senior Housing Land Development Plan. Senior housing, and the way that it is constructed, in that it is income-based housing, essentially meets the qualifications for our workforce housing ordinance. There are certain elements of that ordinance that are being utilized as part of the land development plan, and one of the requirements in order for a developer to utilize our workforce housing ordinance is the execution of a developer agreement. And what you have here tonight is a culmination. This is here essentially as a report back to council. Under normal circumstances, timing-wise, we would have preferred that this come to you for actual approval, given the fact that our regular meeting schedule has been a little light, and given the fact that staff has been working closely both with the Center County Housing Land Trust Executive Director, Missy Schoonover, as well as with the Township Solicitor, Louis Glantz, back and forth with the developer. We were very confident in the foundations of the document, and given that timing was of the essence for some of the PFHA programming, we, after final review with Louis, it was executed on the part of the by the developer, and they've recorded this. So this is here essentially for your review this evening. We will endeavor to answer any questions that you may have about this, but this in essence is the final document that will be going forward with that land development plan.
Okay. Carla?
Yeah, just a quick question. So the Evergreen Heights units are not going to be rented, they're going to be sold?
No, it is a rental, is my understanding.
Okay, the level of rental affordability.
Level
I
of
see
rental.
that. Okay.
Yes. That is all income stratus, or income based, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm not trying to confuse. If I'm using the wrong lingo, Lindsay, you may need to jump in and edit.
No, they're rentals, because the beginning at or below 65% of AMI, that's our ordinance with rentals.
Right. Yeah, the biggest area of concern in negotiating back and forth with the developer on this, or working with the developer on this, was the what-if scenario if the project was to sell at a point in time, sometime in the future. And
When you say sell individual units or the property
no,
as a whole?
property, I believe it's the
Property as a
property
whole.
as a whole.
Okay.
And again, that was a lot of clarification and understanding. And that was essentially what I know that our solicitor spent the most time reviewing with the developer, was that particular clause about how a particular value would be struck, and what protections were going to be in place on the part of the township for securing those units as income eligible as workforce type units.
Okay. Paul, did you have any questions? Carla's still flicking through. Anything? What are you looking for from council on this, if anything?
I would say that you could, well, there's absolutely no harm if council is in agreement to simply move to approve or move to what's the word I'm looking for?
Adopt?
could adopt or to,
Recognize it or?
Accept.
Well,
accept.
execute, so, and the other part is, does it specify who's to execute this agreement?
It's
Already
been,
is.
It's been executed.
yeah, like Adam said, you know, because of some timing, and the PFHA, yeah,
PFHA, right?
Yeah.
it's not
I did the
just,
same thing.
and the timing of getting the plan recorded before they needed to come back to get another
Okay.
extension. The agreement was recorded because it was a condition of plan approval. So all agreements had to be approved before and recorded before the plan could get
So
recorded.
we're
I
looking to
executed
affirm,
it.
we're
You're-
affirming.
That's the word I was looking for.
I'm
Thank
glad I
you.
could help.
Nicely done.
Well, I had to understand
Boom.
what action we were
Yeah.
trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
So,
I've executed on behalf of the township
Understood,
in
as part
accordance
of the
with the out.
condition, in accordance
Exactly.
with the execution, but we can take we will take formal action
Thank
to
you.
affirm
Yes.
the manager's execution of the agreement.
Well, on that note, I move to affirm the workforce housing agreement as outlined in the memo dated July 18th.
I will second.
There's nothing
that
else to
affirmation.
title it, right?
Before anybody says anything else, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. MB2, ABC appointments. So this one, if you recall, we had Mr. Bill Sharp resign from the IDA. We pushed out to our ABC reps, existing ABC reps, any interest in wanting to fill that. We had two candidates that stepped forward, Mr. Ed Dara, who is on our planning commission, and Mr. Ray Liddick, who is on our water authority. If there was, we've interviewed both of them, obviously, because they're already on our ABCs. I can speak for Mr. Liddick. His intent was to continue on the water authority, should he be appointed to the IDA. I believe Mr. Dara was the same for the planning commission. So, and what we're hoping to do this evening, if council is comfortable, is make an appointment to the unexpired, Mr. Sharp's unexpired term on the IDA. Is that correct? Okay. Also, we had a resignation from the planning commission. If you recall, we already put two alternates in place on the planning commission. And we would need to take formal action to appoint potentially one of those alternates to the
Unexpired.
unexpired term of
Jensen.
Jim Lang. Yeah. And then finally, if we want to refill the second alternate PC position, we need to direct staff to advertise for that. And then we would take formal action at a future meeting by resolution, is that correct?
Correct.
A resolution to appoint someone, another alternate,
Yeah, to reestablish.
to reestablish the second alternate.
That's correct.
So three different pieces there. So, go ahead.
First question.
Yes.
Was the IDA vacancy advertised outside of within the ABCs?
Other than as a general.
Did you say outside or inside?
Outside.
Well, we did it on like the newsletter, or the
Okay, just
website.
the open.
General
And we don't have
request.
any
And
applications,
we did get one application,
so we do have one.
but he kind of fit, that he was interested in the planning.
Correct.
Planning and zoning hearing.
Yes, he
And/or-
did not indicate the IDA.
The
Yeah.
only reason I bring this up is because, in my opinion, if we do have people waiting in the wings, it is nice to bring people in sooner than have people cover hold two positions.
Sure.
It's just a
Understood.
sort of process preference, so if we do have somebody waiting in the wings who wants to actively serve on PC, and we have somebody who wants to stay on PC but also do the IDA, like that,
Right, so my understanding is that we only have two candidates for the IDA.
for the IDA.
Right,
For one position.
for one position.
Right, but they both want to hold
Their
other
previous
positions, and
as
we
well.
do have somebody who is willing to
No, we do not. The person who put the application in is interested in planning commission or zoning hearing board.
I know, but we have a planning commission member who's interested in holding on to his planning commission and going over to the IDA, when we have somebody who's willing to fill up into that planning commission.
He's not the one we're replacing.
That's not, yeah.
Oh, I know. I'm just bringing him up.
Now, I understand what Carla's saying.
I don't.
Well,
It's
Carla's point.
Typical.
No,
That's the way I say it, I'm sorry.
Carla's point was that if at all possible, we should
I
not
do.
have people hold 2 spots
I understand that,
or more.
but we don't have a non-current ABC candidate for the IDA. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, that was my point, is that we only have 2 candidates, and they both happen to be current ABC folks.
That
And
are
they're willing to
interested
do
in
both.
the IDA.
Right.
Okay,
That's correct.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, mine is, I understand, we're not going to just say like, oh, well, you can't do both. That's what you're saying? We're not gonna say you can't do both. We're not gonna say you have to decide.
Correct, correct. Oh, well, that's my premise. I'm not saying.
Okay,
we
that
would.
was- yeah,
But
that- I think
could
that
be-
was the
I mean, that
assumption.
could be, but I'm one voice.
I think the rest of council would be on your side.
And towards that though, when I look at the duties of doing double duty, nothing against the water authority, but actually kudos to our award-winning manager. He makes the water authority easy, and everything. So I feel that a water authority member could do the extra duty. The planning commission's a big load.
And they meet twice a month.
Yeah,
Once a month.
right. So.
And we don't have any waiting in the wings for the water authority, which is neither here nor there.
We actually
We have
have
an
a,
alternate.
we do have an alternate
We have an
on
Oh, we do.
on the water authority. That's correct.
And one other point, we're potentially gonna have some transitions in the water authority, because,
Yeah, but they may be a year or more out.
right, but still, you gotta
Yes.
build that knowledge base.
Sure,
and-
absolutely.
And everything, and so, I forget how long, but it's been on a couple of years.
Yeah, Ray's been
So
on
they're
7
starting
years
to build,
this
he's starting to build that education towards,
Absolutely.
so we don't have a cliff. But, so, again, I agree completely. If we had somebody applying that was not on anything, then that would be a consideration, or present to the person that was interested, wanted to do both. Hey, pick one or the other, or we're gonna pick the person that doesn't have
Because we
any.
have people,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of where I was going with it, but, it's a lot of moving pieces and it's difficult to treat it fairly if you take that into consideration, so, yeah, what do you recommend us discuss right now?
Adam,
I believe your lowest hanging fruit is making a determination relative to whether or not you are going to elevate one or the other of the PC alternates to fill the unexpired term of
Of Jen.
Jen Landry. That, to me, you have one of the 2 alternates that have indicated they're very interested in assuming that unexpired term, and one has expressed an interest in not, at this time, filling that unexpired term. And so, from that standpoint, again, just in terms of simplicity, that to me seems a very easy move for council to make at this time, whether it's at this meeting, whether it's in another meeting. Mr.
Great.
Fenton is interested in moving into the unexpired term. That, his move there would leave Ms. Corey as
The first
the sitting-
alternate.
The sitting alternate. And council has the ability then, as Rich had indicated previously, if it was council's desire to have a couple of alternates, we would pass a resolution to create that second alternate and then commence a search to fill that position.
Which
and-
we have.
Which we have.
After an
But
But
interview.
we haven't met with that
Which you've
person. We
not-
haven't talked to
Yes.
that person.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
That's the lowest hanging.
it's the lowest, but not much lower. person, in my opinion. But, so yes, is there support for appointing Mr. Fenton to the unexpired term?
Absolutely.
That one, sure, yes.
Okay, well then we would need a motion for
I'll
that.
move to appoint Mr. Fenton to the unexpired term of Jen Landry,
Okay, we have a motion.
ending in, do we need to say when that ends?
I wish I had been
Yeah.
more prepared, but.
Yeah,
Unexpired term of Jen
That's fine.
Landry's.
fill in the details.
And I will second that vaguely worded but clearly articulated.
We got the intent of the parties.
That's
We've
right.
got it. Okay, call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, let's pick Adam's next lowest for the alternate. Do we wish to have a second, refill the second alternate position of planning commission? This is a yes or no.
Yes, I mean,
Yes,
it
okay.
was a position.
We
we've
thought it was a
already
good idea
talked- we
last
thought,
time.
Why wouldn't it be a good
Why wouldn't
idea
we
this
think it's a
time?
good idea this time?
I say, as soon as they, the sooner we can get them
Yeah.
in, we let them serve if they want to serve, yeah.
Would it be possible for us to simply meet and interview this person before we formally act? Because
We need,
our
that
next.
has been our policy.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
that's the
That
good.
has
next
always been our
step.
policy.
There would be no action on a second alternate this evening. You don't have a resolution
Yes.
prepared where you can insert that individual's name.
And we could act on that on the 4th.
Correct.
Yeah.
First step is we want a second alternate. Yes, okay.
Now
The
we-
next side of it is we have one applicant. We have one in the queue that wants planning commission. So we don't really need to push out advertising, requesting more. That would be the next question with regard
I mean,
to
as
that.
we do in
I
every
think we just do
cycle.
it once, we're just gonna plan on pushing that once a month out in our,
No, I get it, but
not for anything specific.
you're comfortable not
Specifically
specifically asking for a planning commission rep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then Jen, if you could, try to schedule with that applicant a meeting before
6:30.
our
Okay.
next meeting. And then have the resolution ready such that we could potentially appoint them. Is that all good?
Yes.
Okay.
We moving up the tree to
Yeah,
the?
we're at the final branch.
There's only one
All
more
right.
branch.
ID.
There's only one more branch.
IDA, two
Um,
applicants.
I will note that, well, as the ID liaison, I'm just gonna say, the next meeting is the 17th of August, which gives us an opportunity to address this at our meeting on August 4th. I think it might be helpful to have other members of council weigh in on
Okay.
the benefits of, I mean, they're both great candidates, they both have served with distinction, but I think, it might be worth having a bit more discussion before we act on anything tonight.
I don't have a strong qualm about that, but I know I have my lean, but I.
But perhaps that could be part
I
of that.
defer to our.
Yeah, you're
IDA
the rep.
liaison.
Yeah.
Yep. If
Well-
that's what you'd like to see us do, that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would make sense, and it would be
Okay.
fair to
Yep.
the two applicants as well.
Sure. Sure. Okay.
Do you want me to schedule the interview with enough time for you to have a discussion about that before you go? Like,
That would be an
executive
ideal
session?
time
Yeah.
if we would all be in the same room, sure.
Okay.
Okay. That assumes we're all gonna be there again.
So I made that executive decision.
Yep, cool.
What, are we talking about a day for that?
I was just thinking before the August.
Before
one.
our August, before the meeting.
Like a 6:30.
Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah, it's great. Whatever.
Yeah.
Very good.
Let me
Thank
check
you.
my calendar.
Okay.
Just kidding.
All right, so we got 2 out of 3. Staff informatives, is there anything that staff wishes to inform us upon?
If I may, Mr. Chair, just
Please.
we was referenced earlier, the pedestrian facilities master plan. I know we talked about it at the last meeting in June. Just a quick update on that. We are working diligently to prepare the materials for the public input period. I would say right now, we're probably going to miss our target date, but with good reason, in terms of what we're putting together and what what we think this process may generate, we'd rather do it right the first time and put as good a material out there for the public to consume as possible. I can attest, working with Lindsay and Shane, where we're at. We're close. It's going to be a nice product when it hits the street. In that vein, we have compiled a survey, and I would like, if it's okay with council, to send it to you to review to make sure we're getting the type of feedback that you want to receive back as part of this public input period. Make sure we're asking the right questions and getting that breadth of input that you'd like to see before making some action on this plan.
Yeah, great.
I'll get that sent out to you tomorrow.
Okay. Anything else, staff informatives-ish?
Well, the ish part I'll pick up on. Now, I just wanted to, I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be out of town. Actually, I'm going to be out of state until the end of next week. So Mike will be acting, and anything that needs to come his way, you're in good hands.
So we'll include that under council staff, other matters. Anything else?
You said ish.
Yes, I did. Anything else? Go once, gone twice. Motion to adjourn?
I would make that
We
motion.
have a motion, I'll second. You're adjourned. Thank you so much.